Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about Hitler and the monarchy because I often hear people claim that Hitler was a fan of the monarchy or many monarchists actually supported Hitler. So today I want to deep dive into that and look if that is actually true. Well, if we only look a bit into the sources, it fast gets very clear that he very much despised the monarchy. He really much disliked it, especially also Wilhelm II, the Kaiser, and the Prince. So yes, Hitler was no friend of the old order. In Mein Kampf, he blamed the monarchy, especially the Hohenzollern dynasty, for losing the First World War and basically abandoning the people in their greatest hour of need. Here I quote, "The Crown Prince particularly was the object of my most violent fury, for I regarded him as the chief culprit for the whole miserable mess. His failure to carry out a duty which he was more than anyone else obligated to fulfill aroused my deep resentment." So Hitler basically hardly attacked the crown prince because he kind of said he abandoned the German people in their deepest hour of need. Which is interesting because this really idea reflects also his idea that monarchists are often bourgeoisie people for him and they are cowards for him. So this really connects these two ideas of monarchists and bourgeoisie. So I want to give you directly the next quote. I quote, "The House of Hohenzollern was not compelled to abdicate, it fled. It left the German people in the lurch. The abdication was a cowardly desertion of duty." So these statements reflect a central belief of Hitler. Leadership means sacrifice and total commitment. For Hitler, the monarchy had proven itself incapable of defending the folk or the people, and so it had no right whatsoever to rule over the people. For him, it was important that the leader of one's people had to fight till the last man and stay in the country and lead them. As soon as the leader gives up and flees from the country, he had no right anymore to rule over the people. So Hitler was clearly not a friend of the monarchy. But what did he offer the people? Well, his ideology was the Führerstaat, basically the leader state. So basically this was that he was the leader of the people, of the folk. He was chosen by the people, at least he said so, and I mean he got elected. But yeah, he got chosen by the people and he had the absolute will of the people. So he knew what the people wanted. At least he claims that he knew it. So there was a complete personal cult around Hitler. That he was the leader, his decision was the right one, and everyone else basically didn't have the insight into the will and the need of the people like him. So what he decided was right, and what other people decided was only right if it basically confirmed his decisions. So it is important to note that while the monarchy had already kind of a personal cult around the Kaiser, it was by no means comparable to the personal cult around Hitler. So that was a whole different level. The personal cult around Hitler was way stronger than the one around the Kaiser. For this, I want to give you a quote again. Hitler made it basically from July 1933 already clear what his view was. A people cannot be represented by a monarch who is above the people. Only the man who struggles with the people who suffers with them, who fights with them. He alone has the right to represent them. So this distinction is essential. To Hitler, the monarch was a passive relic of the past. The Führer, by contrast, was an active embodiment of the people's racial and historical destiny. The Führer comes from the people, while the monarch is born above the people. So that's why he said that the Führer had all rights to lead the people, while the monarch was not part of the people. It was rather someone who never suffered the life of struggle like the normal people had to endure. Here, a short quote out of my unpublished book, where I basically summarized shortly what Hitler's view on that was. The monarch is bound by tradition. The Führer breaks tradition to fulfill the higher law of nature. So Hitler was not a friend of tradition. No. He basically broke tradition in his way. He was a revolutionary out of his own viewpoint. So for him, it was not important to keep tradition alive, but to create a new spirit, a German spirit, for the people to basically save the Aryan people. Well, and here comes why many people actually believe that Hitler supported monarchy. Because monarchists and conservatives firstly supported Hitler actually. Because they thought they could use him to restore the old order, the old Second Reich, the Kaiserreich. They thought they could use him to restore it. But Hitler did not like that. Hitler despised them. But he was able to see that he could use them for his terms and would use their support until he didn't need them anymore. So basically, they thought they tricked Hitler, but in reality, Hitler tricked them. This Hitler articulated clearly in a talk 1942, where he said, "These old monarchists have no sense for the revolution. They believe we are simply another conservative party. They understand nothing." So the nobility, the monarchist officers, the landowners, to Hitler they represented a dying class that no longer served the racial struggle. Once in power, he marginalized these groups quickly and, in the end, also tried to do it completely. Here, another quote out of my book. In Hitler's mind, monarchy was dead, not because it was overthrown, but because it had spiritually abandoned the race. So for Hitler, it was not important that monarchy was no more, because it could still be the right thing, even though it was overthrown. But this was clearly not the case here for Hitler. For Hitler, it was already dead when it was still basically alive and the monarch was still in power. Because for him, monarchy has abandoned the race because it did no longer serve the people in the way it should. It is important to understand that Hitler believed that with the time the needed government changed constantly. And he argued that there was a time where monarchy was absolutely fitting for the need of the people. But for him, this time was over. The time had come for the Führerprinzip, for his leadership, to basically fight the final struggle, because he thought his kind of leadership was the strongest possible, and thus it was the right fitted to fight the final struggle against the Jewish, basically, world conspiracy. So Hitler didn't want to go back, he wanted to go forward into something new and absolute. In this, he was actually more like Lenin than like Wilhelm II. He stated this also bluntly in a conversation. We are not conservative. We are revolutionary. We are the new order, not monarchy, not liberalism, a racial state. So this idea that Hitler was building a revolutionary racial state helps explain everything from the Gleichschaltung to the SS. Monarchy in his eyes was weak and sentimental. The new state had to be total ideological and based on nature's law, not legal tradition. So, in conclusion, was Hitler a monarchist? Absolutely not. He despised monarchy. He did not like it. He saw it as an outdated system that betrayed its people in times of war, which was the highest sin for him. So instead of being a monarchist, he was a revolutionary. He was someone who wanted to build a new system out of the old. We could say that his new form of leadership, the Führerprinzip, was more of a religion than actually an ideology. I mean, it was a complete cult around him and basically also the racial state, and he was kind of the prophet. So here I will give you the last quote for that day. There is no return to the old. There's only the road forward or destruction. So, as we can see, I understand why people thought that Hitler was a monarchist. Because monarchists did support him initially, because they thought they could use him. But in reality, he hated them and despised them, and actually used them in order to get into power and establish his Führerstaat. So in the end, he was absolutely no monarchist. Rather, the opposite of it. He was actually a revolutionary who wanted to build a new state out of his ideas, a racial state. I hope you liked the video. I hope you could learn something from it. Today it was a little bit shorter than else, but I tried to make it compact. If you have any questions, ideas, criticism, or suggestion, write it down in the comments below and I'm ready to discuss you or thank you. But yeah, I hope you have a great day and bye for now.